I wonder what you consider to be the greatest skills that you learned whilst at primary school. Now, when I think of my primary school days, I very much remember learning to read and write and do maths, which I found quite hard. But more than this, the thing that left the most lasting impression were the speech and drama lessons that I had. I remember being taken out of class for, I think, probably about 15 minutes once a week to study poetry and learning about the rhythm and learning about how to use my voice to really engage my audience. Around about this time, I really improved at school. Somehow, just learning this one thing had a knock-on effect on every aspect of my studies. When I set about preparing a course in spoken communication for children, I had this in mind. It's interesting, isn't it, that when we're at school we have key subjects like writing and reading and maths. What about speaking? Now, when I teach lessons in spoken communication, there's a main emphasis on 2 things and a secondary on 4. So the first 2 really are elocution and public speaking. And I'll explain the importance of these to you. Elocution isn't just about speaking nicely. You see, when you can speak well, you can also write well. For a lot of children in London and Essex in particular, because of their accents, when it comes to using phonics for spelling, it gets really difficult. If you can imagine a child that says think, spelling the word think, their spelling's going to be quite different, isn't it? So, as you would expect, it ends up starting with an F. So just by helping them to form these extra sounds that aren't perhaps in their vocabulary and in their ability, it enables them to spell more accurately. And then when studying poetry, this is one of the most interesting things, and one of the things that I learned at the age of 8 years old myself. If you follow the rhythm of the verse and you follow the punctuation, your voice naturally inflects at commas and comes down at full stops. And once you start speaking like this, it becomes so much easier to punctuate. So that's elocution. And when it comes to the public speaking part of the lesson, it's really about standing up and thinking on your feet, putting everything into action that you've learned in the rest of the class. So grammar becomes very important in order to make yourself really clearly understood. And aside from the pronunciation and the grammar and the rhythm, when you stand up in front of an audience, it's really important to speak with your audience in mind. So asking questions and not just speaking about what you want to speak about, but thinking about what they might be interested in. Isn't that one of the most profound life learnings? That when you're in a social situation, you shouldn't just be talking, you should be listening and asking questions. And isn't it wonderful that a child of 7 or 8 years old can learn that and start to put it into practice from such a young age? So those are some of the fundamentals. But then a layer below that is the confidence the child feels if they can stand up and hold their own in front of their class. I know for sure that when I was doing presentations, even at university, I found it nearly impossible. There was this big fear, a deep fear of being judged by other people, of saying the wrong thing. Isn't it amazing to think that as a child, even as a teenager or a young adult, we believe that there's a right and a wrong, when actually it's just so important to be opinionated. And this is one of the fundamental things that I teach children, to speak from the heart and to be opinionated. So there are a lot of layers to spoken communication. It goes right through from speaking for writing to being opinionated and confident. I don't know about you, but that's definitely what I want for my children.